A couple of weeks ago, I did a very detailed video reviewing the top 5 speedlights I believe are currently on the market today. I made a few maybe small mistakes in that video, and I wanna correct those today. I also got to communicate with Neewer, Godox, Westcott, and Profoto directly about that video, and each one of these companies had something very interesting to say about it as well. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, I've got a lot of info to cover here, and I think the easiest way for me to do it is to kind of go topic by topic in the same order that I filmed it in the previous video. If you haven't seen that previous video, check that out first, because we do extremely detailed tests on all of these flashes. And in this video, I'm just gonna talk about either little errors or extra information that I failed to reveal in that previous video. Let's first talk about the Optical Slave. Now, if you remember, both the Neewer light and the Godox light were the only two to have an Optical Slave. However, the Neewer flash, its Optical Slave was almost unusable. You had to fire a light directly into the front of the sensor for it to see the light and fire itself, which makes it basically worthless. Yeah, so I'm literally firing this flash at this one, and I know you probably can't pick this up on camera, but it is not firing. I have to fire it directly at. That's crazy. I mean, that's basically not even worth it. I got a message directly back from Neewer, and here's what they said. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but this is pretty wild to me. This is a valuable point, and we will adjust the sensitivity of the flash for future production. After the adjustment, the Z2 will achieve at least the same sensitivity level as the Godox V1. So when I first read that, I thought, does that mean it's a firmware update and you can fix every old flash? Or it says we will adjust the sensitivity of the flash for future production. So does that mean they're just gonna fix it and it's gonna be in the same Z2 flash? Or is this going to be a new version of the flash with a different name? They were kind of vague here, so I'm not exactly sure what it means, but I love the fact that they are 100% confident that they will get an Optical Slave to be just as good as Godox. I think that's pretty cool. Next up, modeling lights and autofocus assist lights. I mentioned that it was very strange that although Sony's flash used to have an AF assist light and it used to have built-in LED lights, they removed those features from the new, most expensive flagship flash that they make, which is really strange. I also mentioned that the other 4 flashes do have LED lights and maybe separate autofocus assist lamps, but I couldn't get them to turn on when I was testing it with my camera, and all of the commenters were correct. I had my autofocus set to continuous, and for the autofocus illuminator or the LED light to come on and help in a really dark environment, you do have to have the autofocus in AFS mode or single shot mode so that it's going to try to focus, lock on, and then it's going to take the shot. So when I put it in AFS, all of the flashes except for the Sony had an autofocus assist lamp, and Neewer wanted me to mention that it actually has 2 LED lights. I did realize that, I just didn't mention it because I thought it was strange. I didn't really see the purpose, but it has an LED light near the flash tube itself, but then it also has another one on the front of the flash, which surprisingly is brighter. It's kind of strange. I'm not exactly sure why they designed it like that, but they said, hey, you didn't mention that in the video, and that is true. When it comes to recycle time, the flashes were almost identical. Profoto won by just a little bit. However, Neewer told me that they have a new firmware update out for the Z2, which makes the recycle time faster than the Godox light. So I didn't think a firmware update could do something like that, but if you want that extra millisecond, update your flash. Next up, color accuracy. And I spoke to the president of Westcott, and he was unhappy with the way that we did this color accuracy test. And we redid the test, and the results are pretty wild, but let me explain to you what he was upset about. I think it was a legitimate complaint. The way we did this test was we shot at full power, and then at the lowest power of each one of these flashes, we recorded the Kelvin temperature, and then we just figured out the difference in color temperature between those 2 numbers. Godox got first place with the lowest number at just 27 Kelvin, which is almost nothing, which is quite impressive. Westcott got almost the exact same number in second place at 35, which is still unbelievable. But he said, I noticed that you also did a shot at 1/16th power, and if you consider that number, Westcott actually got first place. And to do the test more fairly, you need to shoot each flash at every single power setting and then find the highest Kelvin temperature and the lowest Kelvin temperature, find the difference, and then that should be the number that you use rather than the highest and lowest. Because first of all, who would ever use two flashes together, one at full power and one at the lowest power? You wouldn't be able to see the one at the lowest power. And then two, what if there's a massive color shift from full power to half power? You'd want to know that because those two power outputs you would actually be using together all the time. So we redid the entire test and we shot every single flash at every single power output, and I was extremely careful about doing this test in a very dark room with the exact same parameters for every single flash. I know this is a lot of numbers here, but the numbers in bold are the highest and lowest numbers, and then the numbers along the bottom are the difference between those two Kelvin temperatures, and the lower number is better. It's higher color accuracy. In this test, Godox again got first place, but now Westcott got last place. So it was a total backfire for Westcott asking me to redo this test. But I have learned a few things. I may not have been using the exact same flashes because I have two of each of these flashes and I haven't been keeping track of which one I've been grabbing out of the box. So I just grabbed one of each flash and did this test again. There's a very good chance that I used one of the other flashes. But I still think that's an important real world test because if there's a huge variation between different flashes, if mine's super accurate but yours isn't accurate, that's really important. It's interesting to figure that out. The other thing I realized is that I can use the same flash at the same power output with the same color meter and get a slightly different reading every single time. Now, I don't know if the flash is color shifting just a little bit, or I don't know if there's a little bit of accuracy issue with my color meter. I'm not exactly sure. I think the bottom line may be that this color test was a little bit misleading in our first video because the difference between Godox and Profoto was so huge, it really made it seem like Godox had incredible color accuracy and Profoto's was horrific. But then when you look at this second test here, all of these flashes are pretty close to one another. However, I will say Godox is still the clear winner. Next up, the big test, the big shocker was wireless range, both long distance and short distance. In our long distance test, Profoto performed horrifically. Not only did it have the shortest range direct line of sight, it was also completely unusable when I put the flash behind my back. Profoto tried this test on their own. They did mention that they were getting somewhat similar results, so I don't think I did anything wrong, and it does seem like Profoto has the worst range when it comes to long distance. Now, when it comes to the short range test, both Godox and Neewer had trouble working when they were very close to each other. If the two flashes were touching, the signal wouldn't reach the receiver. This did work on the Westcott, Sony, and Profoto Light. Now, many people in the comments pointed out that both Neewer and Godox have a short range and a long range option in their remote control. So if you happen to be a product photographer and you're gonna be shooting in the studio and you're very close to your lights, you're going to want to buy one of these remote controls. You're gonna wanna set it to a short range option, which still has like 300 feet of range or something, which is crazy, but it's going to work when the remote and the flash are touching each other. Now, a lot of people in the comments said that this short range option was in the flash menu as well. I don't think that's the case. I think it's only in the remote control that you can buy separately. Now, Westcott told me that with their flash system, they have it natively set to short range so that it works over a short distance. And the president told me that if I use the remote control, I could get the exact same range as the Godox. I wasn't able to do this test, so I don't know if that's true. But remember that when the two Westcott flashes were touching each other, they worked perfectly. So there might be some truth to that. Now, I mentioned that I heard from each one of the four manufacturers, including Godox, but I haven't mentioned them yet. And I had a very interesting email back and forth with them. I sent them the video and I said, hey, I'm going to do an update. Is there anything about this video that you feel like I've done wrong? Or is there any new information that you'd like me to add? And they wrote me back and said, before proceeding with your request, we have recently encountered a significant number of scammers. To verify the authenticity of your inquiry, we would like for you to leave a message on Instagram at Godox Global with the phrase, "Have a nice day!" ! Once you have done this, please take a screenshot and email it to me. After receiving your screenshot, we will also reply on Instagram with "Have a nice day too!" ! And will then be happy to engage in a detailed discussion regarding your feedback and any additional tests you believe should be considered. And I was like, what is going on? So I respond, I'm not asking for any gear. I just want to get a response from Godox. Did I miss anything in my review? And their response was, the video representation is basically okay. Thanks and have a nice day. So I'm glad Godox was happy with my video, but of course they should be because they won most of the test and they ended up being my favorite flash. However, I did fail to include their newest flash. It's called the Godox V1 Pro, and the reason I didn't include it was because I thought it was the exact same flash with this little like direct flash module that goes into the front, but that's not entirely true. The flash is supposed to do much better with thermal protection, so if you're firing full power flashes rapidly, the V1 is going to overheat much quicker and it's going to stop you from firing more quickly, whereas the V1 Pro can go much faster for longer. The Pro version also has a port where you can plug in an external battery if you want to be one of those photography nerds that carries the flash power on your hip. And the most important feature, in my opinion, is that the new battery, which is backwards compatible, which is cool, it now has a USB-C port directly in the side. So you can just plug in a cable into the side of the flash or into the side of the battery. It sticks out of the side of the flash and just charge up the flash without having to use their proprietary charging brick. For me personally, that is a huge upgrade. So to wrap all this up, I think the Godox V1 is still my favorite flash out of all that I tested. But if I had to choose which flash I was going to buy today, it probably wouldn't be the V1, it would be the V1 Pro. That being said, after doing all of this work and doing this update video, everything that I've learned and everything that I've taught you guys might become completely obsolete in the next few days. I'll make an update video if that comes to pass. I know the only reason you watch this video is because you're a photographer. If not, that would be super weird. We are doing photography contests every single month, and right now the genre is travel photography. I guarantee no matter what type of photography you shoot, you have some sort of amazing travel photo in your portfolio. You can head over to fstoppers.com/contest right now, enter this contest. It's totally free. You don't have to sign up for anything. Just upload your picture and you could win a brand new Tamron lens. You could win a Spider monitor calibrating system, or you could win a free tutorial valued at $300 from the F-Stoppers store. You have absolutely nothing to lose. It'll take you 5 minutes. And in honor of this contest, we are doing the biggest sale ever on our tutorial with Elia Cardi, Photographing the World 2. We have been selling this landscape photography tutorial for years for $300. You can get it right now for just $59. You can check out all the links to the flashes we talked about, the contest, and this incredible deal on Photographing the World 2 in the links below.